I had spent the last 10 years building my custom furniture workshop in Portland. Marcus and I had been partners since we met at that craftsman convention, and things were finally looking up with our new $750,000 contract with the Harrington hotel chain. But lately something felt off. Marcus had been acting strange, taking calls in private, making excuses to leave early. My girlfriend Sophia was the first to point it out, and I brushed it off. Maybe I should have listened sooner. Hey, before we dive deeper into this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments, and if you have ever trusted someone who betrayed you, hit that like and subscribe button. The smell of fresh-cut cedar always reminded me why I dropped out of college. Standing in my workshop at 6 in the morning, running my hands along the grain of wood destined to become a conference table for the Harrington Hotel lobby, I felt more fulfilled than any business degree could have promised. The path to this moment had been anything but straight. 8 years ago, I was showcasing my first collection at the Pacific Northwest Craftsman Convention. 3 chairs and a coffee table that had taken me 6 months to perfect. My booth was tucked between a mass-produced furniture retailer and Marcus Thompson, a charismatic business graduate with an eye for exceptional craftsmanship but no workshop skills to speak of. "Your joinery technique is museum quality," he had said, examining my chair without asking permission to touch it. "But your pricing is amateur hour." That blunt assessment sparked a conversation that lasted through dinner and ended with a partnership proposal. Marcus would handle the business side, marketing, client acquisition, negotiations, while I focused exclusively on design and creation. Our skills complemented each other perfectly. My hands created what his networking mind could sell. From my garage operation, we expanded to a small warehouse space within 2 years. By year 5, Justice Woodworks occupied a renovated textile factory with northern exposure windows that bathed my workbenches in perfect natural light. We employed 3 junior craftspeople and had a waiting list of clients willing to pay premium prices for pieces that combined traditional techniques with modern aesthetics. The Harrington contract represented everything I had worked toward: recognition on a commercial scale, without compromising artistic integrity. $750,000 for 28 custom pieces across their newly renovated flagship location. It was validation of my vision and the promise of financial security I had never known growing up in a household where art was considered a hobby, not a career. "When this is done," I told Sophia over celebration dinner the night we signed the contract, "we can finally put a down payment on a house. Maybe even start thinking about that studio you want for your photography." The contract meant expanding the workshop, hiring 2 more craftspeople, and possibly an administrative assistant to handle the growing paperwork. My dream had always been to create a true atelier, a place where traditional craftsmanship could be preserved and passed on to a new generation. With the Harrington money, that dream seemed within reach. The first hint that something was wrong came 3 weeks after we began production on the hotel pieces. I needed the latest invoice from our exotic wood supplier to calculate material costs for the boardroom table. When I asked Marcus for the file, he seemed unusually defensive. "I have it somewhere," he said, shuffling papers on his desk. "Why do you need it right now?" "Just finalizing the material breakdown for the progress report," I replied, surprised by his tone. Marcus handed over a printout with several lines that had been manually blacked out with marker. "Here. The total is what matters for your report." That same week, I received a call from Jack at Pioneer Lumber, our primary supplier for domestic hardwoods. "Hey, Justice. Just wanted to check if everything is okay with the payment schedule. We have not received the deposit for the last order. That should have gone out last Friday," I said, confused. "Marcus handles all the accounts payable." "Well, he told me yesterday it would be another 2 weeks. Just making sure that works with your production timeline." Later that evening, as Sophia and I were driving to dinner, she pointed out a bright red Audi pulling out of a restaurant parking lot. "Isn't that Marcus?" she asked. "When did he upgrade from the Subaru?" I barely caught a glimpse, but it did look like him. "Maybe he got a good deal. Business has been great." Sophia frowned. "Justice, that car costs at least $80,000. And did you see that watch he was wearing at your birthday dinner? That looked like a Rolex. He comes from family money." I said, though, I had never actually confirmed that assumption, and we are doing well with the business. "Not $80,000 for a car," well, she countered. "Not while you are still driving a 10-year-old truck." I dismissed her concerns. Marcus and I had different priorities. He had always been more image-conscious, more focused on the trappings of success. I cared about the workshop, the craftsmanship, the legacy we were building. The money was a means to those ends, not the goal itself. Still, the conversation lingered in my mind. The next day, I approached Marcus in his office. "Hey, is everything okay with the accounts Pioneer called about their payment being delayed?" Marcus looked up from his computer with a flash of something, annoyance, worry, before his expression settled into a reassuring smile. "Just managing cash flow while we wait for the second installment from Harrington. Nothing to worry about. I have got it covered. We needed to prioritize the exotic wood payments since those suppliers are less flexible." His explanation made sense. The Harrington contract had a payment schedule tied to completion milestones. We had received 30% up front but would not get the next payment until the first delivery phase was complete in 6 weeks. "Okay," I said. "Just keep me in the loop. I need to know if there are supply delays that might affect production." "Of course," Marcus replied. "That is why we are partners. You trust me with the money. I trust you with the craftsmanship." Walking back to my workbench, I felt a slight unease that I could not quite place. Marcus and I had been friends and business partners for 8 years. We had weathered economic downturns, supply chain issues, and difficult clients together. If I could not trust him, who could I trust? That night, Sophia found me sitting at our kitchen table staring at my laptop. "What are you looking at so intensely?" she asked, setting a cup of tea beside me. "Our business bank statements," I admitted. I have never really looked at them before. Marcus always handled the financial side. She sat down beside me. And, nothing jumps out as wrong, but I also do not fully understand what I am looking at. There are transfers to accounts I do not recognize, but that could be completely normal. Sophia placed her hand over mine. "Justice, I know you value loyalty. It is one of the things I love about you. But blind trust in business is risky. Maybe it is time to get a clearer picture of the financial side of your company. You think Marcus is hiding something." I asked, the words feeling like a betrayal, even as I spoke them. "I think you deserve to know exactly where your money is going," she replied carefully, "especially with so much riding on this hotel contract." I closed the laptop, feeling guilty for even having this conversation. He has never given me reason to doubt him before. Then, looking deeper, "will only confirm what you already believe," she said. "No harm done." I nodded, but the seed of doubt had been planted. That night I dreamed of woodworking joints coming apart under pressure, the glue failing when it mattered most. The workshop was empty at 11 p.m. on a Tuesday. Everyone had gone home hours ago, but I had told them I needed to finish some detail work on the Harrington hotel bar. In reality, I sat in Marcus's office using the spare key he did not know I had kept, going through file cabinets and computer records with a growing sense of dread. The financial discrepancies were not minor accounting errors. They were deliberate and systematic. Invoices to clients showed higher amounts than what was recorded in our books. Payments to suppliers were recorded as larger sums than what had actually been paid. Most disturbing of all was the discovery of a second business account at Pacific Northwest Bank, an account I had never known about with only Marcus's name on it. Bank statements showed regular transfers into this account. $45,000 last month alone. The account had been opened 18 months ago, around the time we had started pursuing the Harrington contract. My hands shook as I photographed documents with my phone. The betrayal felt physical, like a chisel, slipping and cutting into flesh instead of wood. This was not a misunderstanding or a temporary cash flow solution. This was calculated theft. For the next week, I moved through my days in a fog. My hands still shaped wood, but my mind was elsewhere, replaying every conversation with Marcus over the past year, looking for signs I had missed. Had he been planning this all along? Was our entire friendship a lie? My work, always precise, began to suffer. I ruined a walnut slab worth $2,000 when my hand slipped during a crucial cut. The junior craftspeople exchanged worried glances when they thought I was not looking. Sophia found me in our backyard at 3 a.m., staring at nothing. "You cannot go on like this," she said, wrapping a blanket around my shoulders. "You have lost 7 pounds in 2 weeks. You barely sleep. You need to confront him." I need more evidence, I replied. I need to understand how deep this goes. Why? You already know he has been stealing from the business. From you. Because I need to know if anything can be salvaged, I said. The business, the Harrington contract. My trust in my own judgment. The next day, I called Amy Pearson, the accountant who had been handling our taxes for the past 5 years. I asked her to meet me for coffee away from the workshop. I was wondering when you would call me, she said after I explained what I had found. I've had concerns for a while, but Marcus assured me you were fully informed about the financial arrangements. What financial arrangements? I asked. She looked uncomfortable. The restructuring of profit distribution, the new corporate entity he established as a parent company to Justice Woodworks, the equipment leasing arrangement. None of this made any sense to me. Amy, I do not know anything about any of this. She opened her laptop and showed me documents I had supposedly signed, documents transferring partial ownership of my company to a new entity called MTG Holdings, which I now realized stood for Marcus Thompson Group. These are not my signatures, I said, staring at the reasonable but clearly forged approximation of my handwriting. Justice, I am so sorry, Amy said. I should have confirmed with you directly. As your accountant, I had a responsibility. This is not your fault, I interrupted. I should have been paying attention. That evening, I received a text from Daniel, a former client who now worked for one of our competitors. Hey man, weird question, but is Marcus leaving Justice Woodworks? He was meeting with our executive team today. Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. I thanked Daniel for the information, and then made another disturbing discovery. Marcus had taken out a $300,000 business loan using our workshop equipment as collateral, equipment that represented my life's work and investment. Armed with this knowledge, but still feeling unprepared, I finally confronted Marcus the next morning. We need to talk about the Pacific Northwest bank account, I said, closing his office door behind me. His expression flickered with surprise before settling into practiced concern. What account? The one you have been transferring company funds into for the past 18 months. Marcus leaned back in his chair, assessing me with new eyes, calculating rather than concerned. Finally, he sighed. I was going to tell you once the Harrington project was complete. It is a tax strategy, Justice. Completely legal. I have been working with a specialized business consultant to maximize our profits by establishing a more efficient corporate structure. The explanation sounded plausible on its surface, the kind of business jargon that had always made my eyes glaze over, but I was past believing his smooth explanations. And the forged documents, transferring partial ownership to MTG Holdings, the meetings with our competitors, the loan against our equipment that I never approved. Are those tax strategies too? For a moment, Marcus looked genuinely alarmed that I knew these details. Then his expression hardened. You are overreacting based on incomplete information. This is exactly why I handle the business side. You do not understand how these things work. Everything I have done has been to position us for greater success. Show me the paperwork I demanded. Explain exactly where the Harrington contract money has gone. Because right now we have suppliers threatening to cut us off for non-payment while you are driving a new Audi. Marcus stood up. I do not appreciate your tone or these accusations. I have put just as much into this business as you have, more in many ways. Without my connections, you would still be making coffee tables in your garage. That is not an explanation, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Fine. I will have my business consultant prepare a full briefing for you. In the meantime, I suggest you focus on meeting our production deadlines instead of playing amateur detective. He checked his watch. I have a client meeting. We will discuss this later. And just like that, he walked out, leaving me standing in his office with nothing resolved. That night, I installed security cameras in the workshop and office without telling anyone. Something told me this confrontation was far from over. The security footage felt like watching a horror movie where I already knew the terrible ending. 3 nights after our confrontation at 2:15 a.m., the workshop lights came on. Marcus entered with 2 men I had never seen before. They moved methodically through the space, photographing my design plans, copying files from the main computer and, most shocking of all, loading several of our most valuable specialized tools into a van. I watched the footage the next morning numb with disbelief. This went beyond financial theft into something more personal. He was stealing my designs, my client relationships, my very livelihood. The pieces all fit now. Marcus was not just embezzling money. He was systematically extracting everything of value from Justice Woodworks to start his own competing company. The meetings with competitors were likely to establish manufacturing partnerships using my designs. The diverted funds from the Harrington contract had probably been used to secure a new workshop location. More devastating discoveries followed. Marcus had contacted the Harrington Hotel's procurement director, claiming there were production issues at Justice Woodworks and suggesting they should consider a new supplier, presumably his planned venture, for future phases of the Ryder project. Nearly 70% of the upfront payment from Harrington had been diverted to accounts I had no access to. Our business account held just enough to maintain appearances while Marcus completed his extraction. When I tried to access our client database, I found the files had been corrupted. Marcus had taken a copy and deleted our only backup. The betrayal was so complete, so methodically executed, that I could barely function. I sat on the workshop floor surrounded by half-finished pieces for the Harrington contract, wondering how I would ever complete the work with diminished resources and a shattered spirit. The lowest moment came when I received a formal letter from Harrington's legal department expressing grave concerns about project delays and threatening to invoke penalty clauses in our contract if the first delivery milestone was not met within 2 weeks. The penalties would bankrupt what remained of the business. Sophia found me in this state when she came looking after I failed to answer her calls all day. "Justice," she said softly, kneeling beside me on the workshop floor. "Talk to me." "It is over," I said flatly. 8 years of work. Everything I have built. He took it all, and I let him do it because I was too busy with my head down at a workbench to watch what was happening to my own company. She sat with me in silence for several minutes, her hand on my back, before speaking again. "What would you tell one of your apprentices if they ruined a piece of wood?" The question was so unexpected that it broke through my despair. What if an apprentice made a devastating mistake on an important project? What would you tell them that mistakes are how we learn? That sometimes you have to start over? And would you tell them to give up woodworking forever because of one failure? I shook my head slowly. No. I would tell them that every master craftsman has a pile of failures behind their successes. "Justice," she said, turning my face toward hers. "This is terrible. I am not minimizing that. But this is one failure in a life that will have many more successes, if you do not give up now. The practical reality can be dealt with," she interrupted. "You are not alone in this, and you are not the first person to be betrayed by a business partner." That night, for the first time in weeks, I slept for 6 uninterrupted hours. In the morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to David Rosenberg, a lawyer who specialized in business fraud. The second was to Miguel, a former apprentice, who had gone on to establish his own successful metalworking studio. By noon, I had the beginnings of a plan. By evening, I had assembled a small team of loyal craftspeople, friends, and business contacts, willing to help save what could be saved of Justice Woodworks. David filed emergency legal actions, a restraining order preventing Marcus from accessing company assets and fraud charges based on the evidence I had gathered. Miguel offered his studio space and tools to help complete critical components of the Harrington project. Most surprising was the response from our junior craftspeople when I explained the situation with complete transparency. Instead of jumping ship, they volunteered to work extended hours without overtime pay to meet the Harrington deadline. "Your work changed my understanding of what furniture could be," said Lily, the newest apprentice. "I did not join this workshop because of Marcus. I came to learn from you. For the first time since discovering the betrayal, I picked up my tools with purpose rather than mechanical obligation. The wood still responded to my touch. My skills remained intact, even if my trust had been shattered. I realized that while Marcus had been meticulously planning to steal my business, he had overlooked something fundamental. He could not steal my craftsmanship or my reputation among those who truly understood the work. The sheriff's deputy served Marcus with the restraining order and initial lawsuit papers at a cafe where he had been meeting with potential investors. According to the deputy, Marcus's face had cycled through shock, anger, and then a kind of calculating calm. 3 hours later, Marcus called me. "This is unnecessary and damaging to both of us," he said without preamble. "Call off the legal dogs, and we can work something out that benefits everyone. Like you, worked out the secret bank accounts that benefit everyone, or the forged documents. Those are serious allegations." Marcus replied, his voice hardening. "Allegations that would be extremely difficult and expensive to prove in court. Meanwhile, your precious Harrington deadline is getting closer, and I doubt you can deliver without my business connections." "Is that a threat?" I asked. "It is a reality check. You are a talented woodworker justice, but a naive businessman. I have records showing your approval for every financial decision. Who do you think the court will believe? The craftsman who admittedly paid no attention to the business side, or the Harvard MBA with documented approvals?" His confidence shook me, but I refused to show it. "Those approvals are forged." "Prove it," he said simply, "and be prepared for a countersuit for defamation that will drain whatever resources you have left." After he hung up, I called David immediately. "He threatened to fabricate evidence," I explained. "That is actually good news," the lawyer replied. "It means he is worried. Confident people with clean hands do not make threats." The next day, I faced another critical moment. A meeting with Harrison Parker, the procurement director for Harrington Hotels. I had prepared a carefully edited version of events, hoping to reassure him without revealing the full extent of our internal crisis. But sitting across from him in the hotel's temporary management office, looking at architectural renderings that featured furniture I had designed, I made a split-second decision. "Mr. Parker, I need to be completely honest with you about what has happened at Justice Woodworks." I laid out the situation: the betrayal, the theft, the scramble to fulfill our contractual obligations, despite severely compromised resources. I showed him photos of the work in progress and detailed our emergency production plan. "I understand if Harrington needs to invoke the penalty clauses or find another supplier," I concluded. "But I wanted you to have all the facts before making that decision." Parker was silent for a long moment. "My father was a cabinet maker in Minnesota," he finally said. "I grew up watching him battle suppliers, unreliable contractors, and clients who did not understand the value of handcrafted work." He tapped his finger on the production timeline I had presented. "This revised schedule gives you an additional 3 weeks for the first delivery phase. If you can meet these dates, Harrington will waive the penalty clauses and maintain the original contract value." The relief was so intense, I had to brace myself against the conference table. "Thank you. We will not let you down." "I know," he said, "because I have seen your work, Justice. The quality speaks for itself." Back at the workshop, the team had grown. Word had spread through Portland's tight-knit craftsman community about Marcus's betrayal. Competitors who respected my work sent journeymen to help. Suppliers extended credit terms. A retired furniture maker volunteered his specialized equipment to replace what Marcus had taken. Even more surprising was the arrival of Howard Brennan, an angel investor who had approached us 2 years earlier about potential expansion funding. Marcus had declined his offer, claiming the terms were unfavorable. "I always thought it was odd that you weren't interested in discussing terms," Howard said, "because they never got as far as an actual proposal. Now I understand why." Howard offered bridge financing to cover immediate expenses with the potential for a longer-term investment once the legal situation stabilized. Unlike Marcus, he wanted no control over design decisions or production methods. "The value is in your craftsmanship and vision," he said. "My job would be to protect that, not change it." For the next 3 weeks, the workshop operated nearly around the clock in coordinated shifts. Sophia used her marketing skills to manage communications with other clients, and the press crafting a narrative of resilience rather than scandal. Meanwhile, the legal process yielded results. The judge granted a temporary freeze on all business assets Marcus controlled after David presented evidence of the forged signatures and financial diversions. The criminal investigation gained momentum when 2 other business owners came forward with similar stories about Marcus's consulting overtures that had led to data theft. When the first delivery of Harrington pieces was completed, 2 days ahead of even the extended deadline, the entire workshop team gathered to watch the installation. The restaurant bar host stand and lobby seating all reflected the vision I had first sketched nearly a year earlier. Harrison Parker ran his hand along the bar's edge, following the grain pattern that I had so carefully selected. "Exceptional," he said simply. "This is exactly what we wanted." As the legal case progressed, The full extent of Marcus's planning became clear. He had been laying groundwork for over 2 years, systematically positioning himself to extract maximum value before launching a competing business, using my designs, client relationships, and business methods. The court ruling came down decisively in my favor. Marcus was found liable for fraud, theft of trade secrets, and breach of fiduciary duty. The judgment included full financial restitution return of all company property and a permanent injunction preventing him from competing in the custom furniture market for 5 years. His countersuit collapsed when our lawyer produced evidence that Marcus had backdated documents and falsified records. The criminal charges were still pending with the district attorney, considering a plea deal in exchange for Marcus's cooperation in other fraud investigations. The aftermath was messy and painful. Rebuilding the business infrastructure took months. Regaining my creative focus amid the ongoing legal proceedings proved challenging. There were nights I still woke up in a cold sweat, replaying how easily my dream had nearly been destroyed. Sophia suggested I try therapy, something I had always associated with other people's problems. But sitting across from Dr. Levine each week, I gradually understood that the betrayal had wounded me in ways that success and legal vindication could not heal. Trust is like wood grain, I told the therapist in one session. Once split along the grain, it can be glued back together, but it is never quite as strong as the unbroken piece. Perhaps, she replied, but woodworkers still create beautiful things with joined pieces. The key is understanding the grain using the right techniques and accepting that joined wood has different properties than a solid piece. Her words stayed with me as I cautiously rebuilt my professional life. I became more involved in the business side of Justice Woodworks, not because I enjoyed it, but because I understood its importance. Howard's investment allowed us to move to a new workshop space, smaller but more efficient with natural light that made every piece of wood come alive. Most meaningful was my decision to formalize an apprenticeship program. Working with young craftspeople reconnected me with the pure joy of creation that had drawn me to woodworking in the first place. Teaching them not just techniques but ethical business practices became a mission that gave purpose to my painful experience. 1 year after the Harrington installation, I received an industry award for the project. Standing at the podium looking out at the community that had rallied around me in my darkest moment, I finally found words for the lesson that had been so brutally taught. Fine woodworking requires both vision and vigilance, I said. You must see the potential in raw materials while remaining alert to flaws that can compromise the entire piece. The same is true in business and in life. Trust is essential, but so is discernment. The greatest disservice we can do to ourselves is to focus so intently on our craft that we become blind to warning signs in our peripheral vision. The rebuilt Justice Woodworks was different, more collaborative, more transparent, more resilient. My relationship with Sophia had deepened through the crisis. We had finally bought that house with a dedicated studio space for her photography and a small workshop where I could escape when the business side became overwhelming. Marcus's actions had nearly destroyed everything I had built, but the reconstruction had created something stronger, more authentic, and ultimately more successful than before. The betrayal would always be part of my story, but it no longer defined my future. 2 years after the confrontation, I received a letter from Marcus. He had served 6 months in minimum security prison and was now working in another state. The letter contained an apology of sorts, though it still framed his actions as business decisions gone wrong rather than deliberate betrayal. I did not respond, not out of lingering anger, but because I had nothing left to say. The energy that had once fueled my sense of injustice had been channeled into creating a business that reflected my values in both its products and its practices. Sometimes the most powerful form of healing is not forgiveness, but forward movement, crafting a life so rich and purposeful that betrayal becomes merely one chapter in a much longer, more beautiful story. What betrayal have you experienced in your life? How did you overcome it? And what lessons did you learn? Let me know in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share with someone who might need to hear that betrayal does not have to be the end of their story. Thank you for listening. And remember, Sometimes what seems like the breaking point becomes the turning point instead.